Hello and welcome to Prescott Talks, brought to you by Prescott E-News. I'm your host, Brooks Compton, and today our special guest is Councilwoman Connie Cantelme. Connie, welcome to the show.
Thank you, and today it's Mayor Pro Tem Connie Cantelme.
Yes, I wanted to ask you about that. You seemed a bit surprised and humbled at when Kathy Rusing made the motion to appoint you.
I was surprised. I was very surprised and very honored to be able to do that. Still kind of clearing up what the division of work is between Mayor Pro Tem and what I was doing already as a councilwoman. But so far, I guess I get to read all the announcements right as we start our council meetings. But no, it's been fun. It's been good. But thank you.
So is there, what's it like working on the council today?
It's good. It's all good. I've always been involved in the city and, have an interest in how things turn out. And of course, we have some very serious things that we're dealing with today. So it's not all fun and games, but just try to keep my eye on the end result and, make sure we listen to our attorneys and analyze what the facts are and we move forward. Do a lot of reading, a lot of studying on the issues and making sure that we make the right decision for the city.
Well, given the recent news about the recall, how has that influenced the dynamics on the board, or have you seen any change?
Well, it's obviously a distraction. It's a distraction right now for all of us, and we're dealing with, some development agreements that were made back in 2017, and sort of the backlash today of those decisions that were made in 2017. So it is a distraction, and I have to sit here and wonder. We just had an election. Mayor Phil Goode was elected with 97.10% of the voting public.
I wonder if that's the highest there's ever been in the city.
I don't know. That's a good question. But I do find it interesting, the timing that they did it, kind of spoiled the day for a few people. But nonetheless, we're going to deal with it. And we have. A lot of the claims were just sort of unfounded things. And we were able to try to refute, most of the claims that were made on the other side. But it's mostly hearsay. And we'll just deal with it, move forward. Like I said, the issues are pressing. And we're all of us trying to make sure we do the right thing and make sure we keep up with the paperwork.
Well, that's good to hear that you're not distracted by, let's call it the pettiness of politics.
Yes.
And that the council is moving forward. What are some of your goals for 2024? And for police or fire or what?
Yes, I want to continue on. I mean, when I started there as an appointed council member, I had a lot of experience working down at the city. As I said many times in the forums, I have served on 8 boards and commissions under 4 different mayors for the last almost 20 years. So I've been very dialed in and tuned into what's going on in the city. So I had, the ability to recognize some of the weaknesses at the city, and I've been really working and focused on some of those things. I'm a planner because I own a company, 4 of them actually over my 40-year career. And I am a planner, and I think you have to have a little vision. So one of the things that I've been working on, as you probably know, I'm very involved with fire and police, encouraging and making sure that we do the right thing for our city based on the growth, because we are behind. We are behind right now in both police and fire. So we're going to be spending a lot of time catching up in the next few years, and that means new stations, new employees. That's been a big thing. Another thing, again, from my 40 years as a career woman is I've been very, very much involved in encouraging, and they are actually doing it now. Staff, Tyler Goodman and Katie Gregory have been very active in collecting data. We have to have data as a city to go forward. I don't know.
Is this something new?
Yes, it is new.
Okay.
It is new. And in the past, we really haven't collected data. We haven't had the means or the ability to be able to do that. But, we're having growing pains. We're not a little tiny town anymore. We're growing, and we're growing quickly. And I think it's very important that we collect that data. We need to know who's doing business in our town. We need to know where to direct our money. And all of that data will reveal that information to us. So one of the other things I've been encouraging is a business license again. For some reason, and I know I've heard some talk about why they took it away, 2016 and 17. I have my own theories, but again, as a business person, and how do you run a city when you're blind? We don't know who's setting up business here. We don't know if it's something we should, dial into for our economic development. We also just came through a few years ago a proliferation of sober living homes and group homes. We didn't know that as a city, that we had all of a sudden become the nation's number 2 or number 3 drug rehab spot.
And that certainly contributed to a lot of the blight in the city as well.
Oh, it absolutely did. And, we didn't know because we weren't collecting any information on that. So we were blind. And then all of a sudden, when the repercussions of that industry started to really affect the neighborhoods, then all of a sudden it was, an emergency. So we've got to be able to get a handle on that stuff. And the only way a municipality can do that is to be rich on data and have a business license. And nobody wants to make the license, $100 or anything. It's minimal. It should be minimal amount of work. It's there for economic development. It's there for our services to be geared up in the event that we have, something like we went through with the sober living homes in the past. So we have a right to know that information so that we as a taxpayer know what's up ahead for us, because that industry also took a real toll on our services. So, and I don't think we were ready. I think we were blindsided by that, once we figured that out. So
this being proactive with this data collection is sort of a way to play, let's say, catch up, where there's been poor planning from previous mayors.
Correct.
And previous councils. Right.
I don't know, and I've talked to a few previous council members, and I've asked the question, why weren't we planning for this growth, 10 or 15 even 20 years ago? We had in Prescott a big spurt of growth in the 70s, and then we had another big spurt in the late 80s. If we had been collecting data at the time, or somebody had some vision to understand what was happening with the growth in the Veterans Administration, we have a lot of vets that locate here. In fact, my father was one of them, came here because of the Veterans Administration. We as a city need to have some foresight, because the taxpayer is the one ultimately who pays for this massive amount of growth. And we find ourselves in a situation now where we haven't had a lot of planning in the past. And we now, because of our new fire chief, by the way, he brought forth some very conclusive data, which indicates we are 3 fire stations behind. By the indication is from the growth and the impact from the growth. So when you talk about a fire station itself, just building it, can run anywhere from $10 to $15 million. You can do the math. Then you've got to staff it. So each one of those fire stations costs close to $2 million a year just to staff it. So you can see how far behind the curve we are. Now, I don't know if you follow the city budget, but you can see we don't have a lot of extra money left over.
That brings up a point of why weren't the police substations and the fire stations included in new places such like Deep Well Ranch? How did those developments get approved without provisions for these things? Was it just poor planning by the previous mayor and city council?
That's the multi-million-dollar question, Brooks. And I don't really know the answer to that. Coming from the building industry myself, and being very involved in Maricopa County for almost 40 years. I don't understand why this was not planned for. They do it in Phoenix, they do it in Scottsdale, they do it in Paradise Valley. Anticipate the growth, collect the data, look at the census. I mean, there's so many different avenues that we could have figured this out. I'm not sure how we got here today, how we got so far behind the curve. And, the question is it massive growth, just runaway growth? But the other question is, what happened to making the developers pony up to help the taxpayer when they receive their go-ahead to build 10,500 homes or whatever the case might be?
This was my point.
Yeah, who at the city is responsible? And I'm talking going way back, because this cannot just happen. All of a sudden, this procrastination has become the taxpayer's emergency. So we've got to figure out a way to be able to pay for these fire stations in the North Prescott area where it's needed. The response times have gone down, exponentially over the years, trying to get from, let's say we've got a station out there on Ross, or we've got one downtown, but something happens at the airport, or I know they do have a substation there, but let's say Deepwell Ranch. In the middle of summer, when that traffic is bad going through 69, it can take up to 25 minutes to get out there. And so we did have an incident of that. So I'm concerned about that. And I think that as a mostly retirement community here, we've got to make sure our services are up to par.
It's good to hear that this Mayor Pro Tem and Mayor and the newly elected council is being proactive now in attempting to catch up and plan for the future. Can you tell us a little bit about the land purchase and the airport and what's happening out there?
Well, we are still in negotiations with two of the bigger developers in the area. We're trying basically to protect the airport. You know what happens with when you take grants from the FAA, as we have, over $50 million over the past 5-6 years in order to build that new terminal. There's this thing called grant assurances that come along with the money. It's the string, if you will, attached to the government money. So what they want the airport to do, and the municipality, is to show that they're protecting the airport. So we have crash zones or impact zones or whatever you want to call them at the end
where planes crash.
Where planes crash. And by the way, if you go onto the NTSB website, which I did just last week, 166 crashes here at this airport.
Are people wanting to build homes there?
Yes. And they had already been in one case, the North Ramp area, there was a developer that was already ready to go with his planned area development. So that's the first purchase that we're going to have to make in that area. Now we're dealing with Deepwell Ranch on the west ramp, if you will, the main runway. So at the end of the runway, you've got 4 crash zones, impact zones, and it's where airplanes have been known to go down in the past. So as I said, according to that website, we've had 166 crashes out there. Somebody said to me the other day, well, we have had very few deaths. Well, that's true, but it's because we don't have a massive development at the end of the runway. If we'd had a massive development, and now they want 5 feet spacing in between these homes, you can imagine.
5-foot setbacks?
Yes, 5-foot setbacks in between the homes. We had one just back in March. If it had crashed in that area with all those homes there, let's even say it's a forestry tanker full of fuel, that could cause massive deaths.
Loss of life.
Totally. So we just can't. We cannot roll the dice. We can't take that chance it's going to happen. We need to do what we can do. Now, we're not a rich community, so we can only do what we can do. But yeah, it's going to hurt for a while. We're going to have to be able to protect that airport and protect, it's the safety and welfare of the people that could potentially be living in those crash zones.
It's amazing that a developer would actually develop there, and it's nice to hear that the council is looking out for the public.
Yeah, it is surprising that they would want to, build there, but they do, and we're just trying to back the bus up. We inherited this problem, this council, mostly.
From previous mayors and previous councils.
Mayors and previous councils. So we are living the sins of the fathers, if you will. So we're trying to back the bus up and protect those areas that should have probably been protected. Now, the other argument is that the developers, followed all of the FAA requirements back in 2016 and 17. And yes, there is some truth to that, but things have changed. We now have, we're passenger airport now. So we've had some changes and we need to comply to that. And we've got to look out for the future of that airport.
Well, Connie, I want to thank you for coming into Prescott Talks. And once again, thank you for interviewing with me. And we hope you come back in the future.
Sure, absolutely.
And to all of our guests out there, we thank you for watching and we look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you, Brooks.